Hey guys, so I'm here to show you how to use a CPAP and care for a CPAP today. Basically right here we have a standard CPAP device. Basically you've got the main unit here, you've got in this specific model, the reservoir detaches in the back like so. Not every model is the same. Some have a side compartment where the distilled water goes in, some have a top compartment. It all depends on the model. And that goes for CPAPs and BiPAPs. Now, the difference between a CPAP and a BiPAP is a CPAP is only pushing air into the person's respiratory system during their inhale. However, a BiPAP is pretty much constant pressure for the inhale and the exhale. So every one of these has a tube. Usually, there is one side that has some type of prong like this. So basically, you want to make sure this side gets plugged into the machine because this is what actually warms the coils in this tube. So that way it's not cold, damp air getting pushed into the respiratory system. It's at least warm air. The other end of the tube goes onto the mask like so. All right. And then one thing you want to make sure when putting these on is when you put it on the individual's head, you want to make sure that it's tight enough to hold a seal, but not overly tight. Just because it's tighter doesn't mean it's better, okay? You'll know when it's tight enough because you won't hear anything, and this cushion on the inside, when air starts pushing against it, it will actually form a pretty solid seal to their face. If you hear a little bit of air escaping, sometimes depending on the type of mask, that is normal. You've got vents in this specific mask right here to vent excess pressure, because again, this is a CPAP, not a BiPAP. So it's not really a completely closed system. Now, for a BiPAP or a CPAP, you can have different types of masks. You could have something like this, which is the full face. You could have only a mouth, or you could have only a nose. It all depends on what that person's pulmonologist and their team kind of recommends. One thing to also keep in mind is you never want to put tap water in one of these. Tap water contains a lot of minerals and heavy metals that you don't exactly want to breathe in, so please always use distilled water. So when it comes to maintenance and actually cleaning this device, you want to make sure you take the thing completely apart. You want to rinse out the reservoir, make sure there's not any standing water sitting in there for long periods of time. Rinse out the tubing thoroughly, and then when you do rinse out this tubing, be sure to hang it up like so. This way it can drain out of both ends. We don't want it hung up like this because then potentially stagnant water can sit in there and then somebody's going to end up breathing any type of mold or something like that in, and we really don't want that. And then as for the mask, again, make sure you rinse out the plastic pieces. I would say you can detach the fabric. That'll help with the longevity of the actual mask itself if you only kind of wash this piece, but again, make sure that it's completely rinsed out. This model specifically doesn't actually look like it needs to be taken apart beyond this. Some masks do come apart a little bit more and have separate kind of pieces that kind of go together to make the full mask, but this one actually doesn't. So just so you know, when it comes to the replacement parts, they usually get changed on a regular basis, whether it be quarterly or biannually, something along those lines. The masks will get replaced, and when I say the mask, it's the entire mask with the straps and everything. The reservoir is probably the only thing that's not going to get replaced. That is pretty much for the lifetime of the unit itself, but you eventually will get a replacement for a tube as well. Hey guys, I'm here to talk to you today about a nebulizer. Basically what this is think of it like an inhaler kind of on steroids. So it uses a similar type of medication, but it uses a device much like a CPAP in a way to help kind of dispense that medication. So this is kind of what your average setup would look like. You've got the mask here, you've got the reservoir where the medication actually goes, and then you've got this very thin little oxygen tube, right? So what you would do to basically prepare this is you would unscrew the reservoir, you would put your whatever medication it is, more often than not it's albuterol, in that little reservoir, and then close it up, and then you would put it on the person's face. And then once you hit the start button, you let it go continuously until there's nothing left in the reservoir. Even if there's a little bit in there, you still want to keep it going. That way they can get as much medication as possible to help with their breathing. Now, when it comes to maintenance and storage of these devices, you want to make sure they're stored in, obviously, a not damp area, so don't put them in a basement. But also, you want to make sure that when you do rinse these off, because you really should rinse the mask off, and you can rinse the reservoir out, that's not a big deal. You want to avoid, however, rinsing out this tube, because if you do rinse this out, water will get stuck in here and it won't be able to really fully dry, and then potentially mildew or stuff like that could form. So just make sure when you are cleaning this out, you clean this part out only. All right?